On January 26, 2021, San Antonio police went to an apartment complex to check on a man whose family was unable to get in contact with for a couple of days. It was supposed to be a routine welfare check, the kind police handle all the time. But when officers walked up to his front door, they noticed what looked to be a bullet hole near the peephole, and that the door was locked from the inside. And once maintenance was able to let them inside, what they saw changed this simple welfare check into a murder investigation. Martell Derouen was lying just behind his own front door, in a pool of his own blood, with a gunshot wound to his forehead. For his family, that day marked the start of a search for real answers about what had happened to him, and why. But before we get into what happened, it's worth understanding who Martell Derouen actually was. Martell was 34 years old, and if you followed San Antonio's R&B and hip-hop scene, you probably knew him by his stage name, Cordone. He signed with Sony Music in 2019 and was starting to build real momentum as an artist and producer. People who knew him all described him the same way: humble, quiet, and someone who didn't lead with the fact that he was actually a cousin of Beyonce's on his mother's side. It was the kind of detail his team put in his bio because it was worth mentioning, but not something he brought up himself. He seemed more interested in being known for his music than who he was related to. He'd been married since 2007 to a woman named Joya, and the two of them moved to San Antonio together as a couple. In 2019, they separated. He wanted to pursue music full-time, and she wanted to settle down and start a family. But even after the split, they stayed close, and Joya later described their relationship at that point as more like friends living apart than a married couple falling out. Some years earlier, back in 2016, Martell had met a young woman named Sasha Scar at a video shoot. She wanted to get into music, and Martell offered to help her out, but neither of them could have known where that connection would eventually lead. After Martell and Joya separated, he and Sasha started dating, and she eventually moved into his apartment at the towers on La Cantera Parkway. What most people around them didn't know at the time was that Sasha had a questionable past. In November of 2019, she and her boyfriend at the time, a man named Andrew Bass, were involved in a drug deal in Austin that went wrong. Bass was shot and killed. Sasha was charged with aggravated robbery and assault with a deadly weapon in connection with that case, and she was still out on bond for it when she got involved with Martell. That history would come up again later when prosecutors offered her a plea deal that she ultimately chose to turn down. In the days leading up to Martell's death, something happened between him and Sasha. Text messages between the two of them showed a fight. In one message, Martell told her he had to defend himself and get her out of the apartment, but he also asked her to bring back his gun. And that detail, the missing gun, ended up mattering a lot. A few days before anyone found his body, someone called 911. The voice on the call was a woman's, but it wasn't Joya's.
Some of the evidence presented included a 911 call made by Scar claiming to be Martell's wife.
I think my husband is injured.
Do you hear him?
No, he's not responding, and I called him, and he's just not responding. And there's a hole in his door.
Joya Derouen, Martell's wife he was separated with at the time, the first to take the stand, says she was able to recognize the voice on the call as Scar's.
At the time, nobody connected that call to what was actually happening inside the apartment. By January 26th, all of that came to a head. This is the welfare check we opened with, the one that turned into a murder investigation. From there, investigators moved fast and the evidence started coming together. They already had the suspicious 911 call from days earlier. They also pulled doorbell camera footage from the scene. A neighbor's Ring camera had captured someone who looked like Sasha walking in the hallway with a gun in hand. When they tested the bullet recovered from Martell's body, the caliber matched his own gun, the same gun that he asked Sasha to bring back earlier through text. Investigators also found that a DNA sample from Sasha matched DNA found on a fingernail recovered from the bed. And at that point, the working theory for investigators was fairly simple. The two had gotten into an argument, he kicked her out of the apartment, and something happened at the door afterwards that ended with him dead on the other side of it. Police named Sasha as their main suspect almost immediately and put out an active murder warrant. She was still connected to that open case out of Austin from the year before, which made her already known to law enforcement. And she was arrested about a week after Martell's body was found. On February 5th, about a week and a half after he was found, Martell was laid to rest at Fountain Memorial Cemetery in Lafayette, Louisiana, with military honors marking his earlier service in the Air Force. But the case didn't actually go to trial until more than 2 years later. in August of 2023 in Bexar County. About a week before jury selection started, Sasha turned down a plea deal that would have given her 20 years in prison. Instead, she took her chance at trial. And on the second day of the trial, Sasha took the stand in her own defense. Her version of events were very different from what the physical evidence suggested.
He had tackled me onto the bed, and for what felt like a long time, he was hitting me, choking me, until up to the point where I couldn't breathe. As I was knocking on the door, I just threw the gun up and I just shot him.
She testified that the fight started while she was on the phone with a videographer, and that Martell hit her and started choking her. She said she fought back, clawing at his face, and that she blacked out from panic before her first instinct was to grab his gun. According to her testimony, she ran outside afterwards, then went back to get her stuff. She said she was banging on the locked door with the gun still in her hand when it went off by accident, killing him. She also admitted on the stand that she was the one who made that 911 call days earlier, and that she threw the gun in the dumpster after the shooting. But prosecutors didn't let that account go unchallenged. During cross-examination, they pushed hard on parts of her story, including her claim that she had to jump over a counter to get away from Martell during the struggle. In closing arguments, the prosecution's position was that Sasha wasn't actually afraid for her life at all. Their argument was that she'd been banging on the door specifically to get Martell to come deal with her, and that shooting him afterwards wasn't self-defense or an accident. It was murder. The jury didn't take long to decide the verdict of the case. After just 2 hours of deliberation, they found Sasha guilty of murder. From there, the case moved into the punishment phase. Prosecutors called family members to testify about how Martell's death had affected them, including his mother, who spoke about the time they spent together while his stepfather was being treated for cancer. The defense didn't cross-examine any of those witnesses or call anyone of their own during this part of the trial. Then the jury deliberated on Sasha's punishment for about 4.5 hours. At one point, jurors asked the judge whether any time she had already served would count towards her eventual sentence. But the judge declined to answer that question directly and told them they already had everything they needed to decide.
And 55 years in prison, that's the punishment handed down just hours ago for Sasha Scare. Scare is convicted of murdering a man found dead inside his La Cantera apartment. 34-year-old Martell Derouen was found with a gunshot wound back in January of 2021. Scare is also connected to a deadly drug deal in Austin in 2019.
In the end, Sasha was sentenced to 55 years in prison, and she won't be eligible for parole until 2048. Martell's sister delivered a victim impact statement after the sentence was read, and his family felt the outcome was justified given what they'd been through. What started as a welfare check turned into one of the more heavily contested murder cases that come out of San Antonio in recent memory. But that wasn't because there was any real doubt about who was involved. Sasha was identified almost immediately, and she never really denied being the one holding the gun. The real question, the one that actually went in front of a jury, was about intent. Whether a fight that escalated behind a locked apartment door ended in a tragic accident, the way Sasha described it, or in a decision made out of anger, the way prosecutors argued it. A jury in Bexar County ultimately decided it was the latter. For Martell's family, the search for answers that began the day police found him finally had an end. It just wasn't the ending any of them expected. But that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to leave a comment and let me know what you think about this case in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more videos like this. Or if you have any suggestions for videos in the future, you could also leave that in the comments. But again, thank you so much for watching, and like always, I'll see you next video.